Welcome to the Fantasy Fling DFS channel.
Hey, it's Fling here with your Week 7 first look. UFL, of course, on Draftkings. A little later than normal, but, my laptop broke, and then I had to get everything all set up with a new laptop. Bought a new laptop, had to get everything set up as far as, logging into Draftkings and, getting everything set up for the show. So, here we are later than usual. Let me know if you like it later because, we have more information to go with as far as like last minutes, who's going to play, who's QB1 with UFL. For the people who know UFL who play it, which obviously you wouldn't be here if you didn't, how crazy this league is. So sometimes I feel like better is later. So in the comments, let me know if you like it later. Maybe I'll do it later the next few weeks. But anyways, let's go ahead and jump into the odds here. All right. So here we are. We are at the Vegas odds. Week 7, guys. It's finally here. I'm super excited for this week because we get the matchup, the championship preview, maybe. No, I'm not talking about Memphis versus Arlington. We'll get to the preview in a quick second. But it's that week, so I'm excited. And right now we got Memphis going against Arlington. This is the first game. And this game here, everyone's going to be focused on the next game. But this game, I think, has sneaky shootout potential. If you are looking to get off the chalk, to go contrarian, maybe you're playing a single bullet and you want to build around another game, but you want a contrarian stack, I think this is the game to target. We get Memphis against Arlington. Both of these teams have just a pretty terrible defense. And, they have playmakers on Memphis and on Arlington. So for me, this game has sneaky shootout potential. And Vegas thinks it's pretty close to the next game we're going to talk about, 45-point total. I do think it can hit the over. I do think we're going to get into quarterbacks and running backs and all that. But I do think this is a game that I definitely want to get pieces from. So Memphis, we got the news today. And, this is kind of what I was alluding to with waiting until like Thursday, because normally I record this like real early Wednesday morning. But waiting till Thursday, seeing the QB, seeing the depth charts, seeing the QB1, Cookus, he's cooked. He's been terrible. Now we are getting Troy Williams, who looked really good a couple weeks ago. At least in the second half, he looked really good and, did something to that offense. And this could be a juicier matchup for him. So I like it. They're actually 3.5-point favorites, but I'm wondering with the news of Troy Williams, if this line's going to start to move. Normally, you'd like to play favorite quarterbacks. I think in this situation, because Troy Williams isn't, above 9K, I'd probably break that a little bit. He also had some rushing floor, so I like that with him. And then, obviously, on the Arlington side, Luis Perez does have 20-point upside. So we've only seen it once this year. He's been pretty disappointing most of the year, but I think, if he can get the offense going, this would be a good spot going against Memphis. So, we're going to look at the stats a little bit more here in a second. But this game, sneaky shootout potential. Now, the game of the week. St. Louis against Birmingham. Guys, like these two teams, for the people who watch UFL every week, I don't have to tell you. These two teams are the cream of the crop. Like they are far and away the best two teams in the league. And, the funny thing is before the start of the year, this is really kind of how I thought it would go. And, San Antonio, they were threatening for a while when Chase Garbers was the quarterback. They've kind of fallen off a little bit since he got hurt. And it's really St. Louis and Birmingham. So you get 5-1 St. Louis going in against Birmingham. You have the two top offenses in the league scoring 28 points per game and the two top defenses in the league. So to me, this game can go a lot of different ways. I think this could be a defensive chess match, lower scoring than Vegas thinks it's going to be. And I can also see this game hitting the over. So, I think if these teams play 10 times, there's probably quite a few ways this game goes. That said, I do like Birmingham here to win this game. They're 4.5-point favorites. They're at home. I think St. Louis, I think that the difference here is their defense has been good against the opponents that they've had. They have not faced a team like Birmingham. So I do expect the St. Louis defense to have more troubles than they've had. We're going to get into the ownership of this game, the projections, the matchups, but this is going to be a real exciting one. Michigan and DC, not a ton I really love in this game here. In fact, I'm going to look just kind of at some numbers. DC has been a pretty bad defense. They got it together last week, but a lot of that was just, I just don't think Dormany's been very good. And, DC, they have been a team that you can certainly target, giving up 25 points a game. It's bottom 4 of the league, right there with Houston. And Michigan has been pretty good. So Michigan is a team, we expect to be a playoff team again. They got a pretty good defense, though. So this game, I'm not as excited about it as the other 2 games that we just went over. I do think, Michigan has a pretty good matchup against the DC run defense. So, maybe we're going to go back to West Hills, who burned us a little bit. Definitely going back to Colburn at a discount. But, maybe you play a little bit of Etling because he has some rushing floor, and DC just gives up a lot of yards and they give up points. So I like the Michigan side in this game more than I like the DC side. And then last, we got the San Antonio Brahmas going against the Houston Roughnecks. I don't know. They signed a quarterback. Dormady, I don't know what's going on with Dormady. Like, how is he this bad with more weapons? All he had last year really was Cody Latimer, and for Orlando, and he had a 6-touchdown game, and he seems like a completely different guy. And he's got more weapons. He's got Latimer, he's got Kirkland, he's got Stevenson, he's got a run game, and he's only throwing for 70 yards, which is just absolutely crazy to me. So I kind of hope they make a quarterback change. I think that would make this slate a little more interesting if we get, a cheap backup in this spot against Houston, which, has not had the best defense, pretty good run D, but they have not had the best defense. You can attack them through the air. You can score points on them. They're right there with DC. So this is a game that's interesting. I don't want any Dormady, not in this spot, not the way he's played, and, considering the other options on the slate. But I think if they change quarterbacks, I could certainly have some interest there. So that said, let's go ahead and move it along. All right, so we're going to start at quarterbacks. Now, by the way, little sneak peek. I do DFS Army UFL cheat sheet every week. This is for DFS Army subscribers. Little sneak peek. These are kind of my plays that I like for the week. Adrian Martinez being the number one, as we're going to get into. And then the other side of that game, also like AJ McCarron. And then, some of my less confident plays that I think could potentially be that contrarian play to win you the slate. Troy Williams and Luis Perez in that same game, as I mentioned. But this is my cheat sheet that I do each and every week, and really going to wait until all the news comes down and then finalize it, post this, the updates in the Discord for DFS Army subscribers. Of course, we got the quarterbacks, we got the running backs, the pass catchers, wide receivers, tight ends, defense. So as a DFS Army subscriber, you're going to get this cheat sheet, but here's the thing. We don't charge extra for it like most sites. So most sites, what they're going to do is charge you like $25 a month. I've even seen like some charging like $20 a week, which is just crazy. This is included in a Core 4 membership. So NBA, MLB, NHL, and NFL, this is included in your membership. So you get this at no additional cost. Or if you are excited for NFL content, which we're going to have season-long content coming up, you could sign up for an NFL membership. This gets us as well. You get the season-long content coming up, the best ball content, and then all of the DFS content, which preseason, I will be doing preseason content. Pretty sure I did that last year. I'll be doing regular season content. So it really never stops for DFS Army subscribers. You can use code FANTASYFLING for 10% off a VIP subscription. I will put this in the description, YouTube description. So little sneak peek on that. We're going to get into quarterbacks right here. So we got AJ McCarron, kind of as you saw. Here's the thing with AJ McCarron. His ceiling is just as high as Adrian Martinez's. We've seen AJ McCarron last year in the XFL. He had like a 48-point game. He needs the touchdowns to get there. The touchdown regression, I do think it's going to happen once this year. He's going to have once or twice this year. He's going to have a 35, it's a 40-point game. Hasn't happened yet because they've been utilizing the backs heavily. Maybe this is a week because Birmingham is a much better opponent against the run than they faced. So I'm probably out on Sailors. I'm out on Gallman this week. I think this could be the spot. Now, that said, he does not have the same floor as Adrian Martinez. You see, he's averaging 21 DK points per game. So he's getting touchdowns, but he's not getting a lot, of course. Let's see. He got 3 last week, 2 the week before, 3. So 3's good. But when you're 11K, it's normally not going to win you the tournament. He needs 4 and like 300 yards to win the tournament. Specifically with Adrian Martinez on the other side, which now this is misleading because he has not started all the games. He started 3 games. And starting 3 games, he's actually averaged 35 DK points per game. Now, considering he's quote unquote been active and he's played in all the games, his DK points is only 20. But he started the past 2 weeks, and you'll see 29 points, 42. And then 2 weeks before that, before week 5 and week 3, he started and he got 33 points. So these are the 3 games that he started. His rushing floor is what sets him apart. Week 3, 44 yards. Week 5, 138. I mean, Michael Vick, Lamar Jackson out there. In week 6, 25, but that's because he just crushed it through the air last week. 368 yards, passing 4 touchdowns. So his floor is definitely higher than AJ McCarron's, and he is a favored quarterback at home, and his ceiling is obviously right there with AJ. So I think in this spot, guys, I like Martinez more. Now, I will say that AJ McCarron is a GPP play, is a pivot off of Martinez, who I expect to be higher owned. Yeah, you can definitely play some AJ McCarron for sure. But as far as you want your guy in cash games, double ups, single entry, small field, large field GPP, I would rather play, specifically if you're not playing a ton of volume, I would almost rather lock in Adrian Martinez, say you're playing 20 lineups, and have 20 different variations off of that. I do think St. Louis, they're in for a much tougher matchup than they've had. It's going to be their offense. They've struggled a lot to get touchdowns when they get in the red zone. They settle for field goals. Their offensive line at time hasn't protected AJ very well. So it's going to be a much tougher matchup for them this week. And I like Adrian Martinez better in this spot. So he would be the guy I'd go with. I mentioned a couple other guys, specifically Troy Williams. Now, he played, it was week 5 against Michigan, 21 DK points. And he didn't start that game, but he played a good amount. Cookus got hurt, and he came in, was kind of bad for a minute, and then got hot. And that's what you will get. He's Jekyll and Hyde. But this is a good matchup going against Arlington, and Memphis defense is poor. This game just has a lot of shootout potential, I think. So he's a guy that I would be interested in, and just kind of give you guys a little bit of a sneak peek for like ownership projections, what I expect it to be. Adrian Martinez will be the chalk. AJ McCarron will get a decent amount of ownership. And as of right now, Troy Williams is getting no ownership. Luis Perez, he's getting a little above 10%. So I think potentially We might be able to get Troy Williams as a contrarian play. And I like pieces of this game. Same with Luis Perez. Like I said, he has 20-point upside. We don't always see it with him, of course. It's very hit or miss, like 13 points, 14 points, 7 points, 20, 21 points. But this is the matchup I think that he could get it going. Both of these teams, again, they give up a lot of points. They're tied 26 points a game they give up. They both give up a lot of big plays in the passing game. So I like both of these guys here. Luis Perez, as of right now, is favored. But I think you can play Troy Williams as well. But my number one play would be Adrian Martinez in this spot. And that pretty much is going to wrap it up for the quarterbacks. All right. So at running back, it's going to be tougher this week than normal. The normal guys that we're going to click, like the Sailors of the world, I'm not doing that in this spot. And let me tell you why. Birmingham is a team that only gives up about 50 rush yards per game to running backs. So this is the team that only allows 14 points per game, and they're only giving up about 50 rushing yards per game. So I'm going to be underweight on Sailors. Gallman's a guy. Maybe Gallman gets in the end zone, and he's at a discount. So maybe you play him. St. Louis has been, they've been kind of middle of the pack against the run. So they haven't been great, haven't been bad. So I think maybe consider playing Marable, who really got involved last week, in person. Let's see. And that's kind of the scenario you want to play them, right? Birmingham's a 3.5 point favorite. So yeah, you play Person, who's heavily involved. He's also 8,800, and Marable's expensive too. He's 8,000. So that's kind of where you have to think. Okay, so if I play Marable, do I want to play Martinez in this game? Do I think it's going to shoot out? Am I going to stack these two together? It's going to be very difficult for both of them to get there, right? Specifically with them having the ability to vulture from one another, because at times Adrian Martinez can be, very much a rushing threat. So you have to keep that in mind. As far as expensive running backs in this game, I'm not as excited about it as I am most weeks to play Ricky Person and CJ Marable. I'll say this, I'm not going to full fade these guys because these are two really good teams. This is the highest total on the slate. St. Louis, obviously, is kind of in the middle of the pack, so they don't have a dominant run game. So one of these guys could go off. But I'm probably not going to have a ton of them. I'd maybe match the field. So a couple, I think, other spots would be better. Like we got Wes Hills going against DC. And, he had one great game 2 weeks ago that's kind of, salvaged his stats a little bit for the year. But overall, has not been fabulous. But this is a great spot going against DC. And, I'll say this. DC has quite a, just very poor run defense. So just overall, they've been a poor defense. They have a 53 PFF score against the run. They're allowing 112 rushing yards. So they've been bad. So this is definitely a team that you can play. Colburn has been getting involved. West Hills, the carries weren't there last week, and that was what was concerning in a good matchup going against an Arlington team that would have been terrible against the run, averaging 1.7 yards per carry. So when it's been bad with the West Hills, it's been really bad. And I think Colburn has just been a little bit more consistent. So you'll see here, 3 yards a carry, 4.5, 3.9. So he's just been way more consistent. I think they should continue to feed him. And he's, a significant discount than West Hills. He's 7K, so I definitely will be over the field on Colburn here. We're kind of going to go back, I think, to what we were doing before all the running back value hit the slate, and that's one running back builds. That's where I'm going to be playing the majority of my builds this week. Just kind of one running back. Yeah, when it was great value, that's when I wanted to play multiple running backs. But I think we're going to go back to the one running back. So, a couple other spots I think that we'll be looking to target. So Memphis going against Arlington. Arlington has the worst run defense in the league. And Darius Victor, we haven't seen it. He's got a lot of opportunities, but they haven't translated to anything. But I think we can go back to him this week in this spot because the opportunities have been there. And, and he's not expensive. So let's take a look. I'm going to look at Victor here a little bit. I'm not expecting a ton of ownership. He's 6,900. So yeah, I think Darius Victor is a guy that I'm going to be pretty excited about this week. Let's look at his game logs. He's averaging about 10 carries a game in the last 3, which in this league, that's pretty standard, right? And then the thing with him is he gets targets. So when they're losing, you're going to see a spike. So he rarely gets phased out of the game to the point that he will bury you, right? He was 7,400 last week and he got 8 points. He didn't bury you, and he's cheaper this week. So even before then, he got 3 targets. We've seen consistent targets every week. It's nice because he gives them a good floor. 20 points probably going to be his ceiling. But if he gets 20 points at 6,900, you're probably winning a GPP. This is a good matchup. This is as good as any for a spike week for Darius Victor. Now, kind of on the other side of that, Memphis isn't very good against the run either. So Arlington, it becomes a little tougher because we're getting Letty Brown back this week. So I don't really know that I want to play Devion Smith. Day Hunter got hurt last week, but if we get Letty, he's 6,100. Maybe we can place a little bit of Letty. And we got Devion at 6,300. So, yeah, I think you can play maybe a little bit of each of these guys, where they're kind of at. They give you double-digit points to where they're at. That's probably certainly enough. And then, that's pretty much it for me with those two. Now, the last two would be in consideration. We got Lovett going against Houston. And then on the other side of that game, we have Mark Thompson. So want to look at Houston's numbers against the run. They're averaging, they're allowing 74 yards per game. So that's not a team you really want to target. So I don't love the Lovett play. In fact, I think he's going to be chalk this week. To me, kind of feels like bad chalk. Kind of feels like chalk I want to try to avoid. On the other side of that, we got Mark Thompson going against San Antonio. And San Antonio could be run on. So, maybe we'll be more inclined to play a little bit of Mark Thompson, who won't be chalk, most likely. But yeah, it's Lovett will be. So, and yeah, Lovett's not seeing a ton of targets, 2, 3, 3, but he's had 2 smash games in a row. He's 8,700. Tough matchup. Not going against DC this week. We got 23 carries last week. So everyone's going to be on Lovett. And the matchup is tougher. I think he's due for some negative regression. So I think, how I would probably treat this is if you're worried about getting burned by Lovett, maybe you match the field or you don't full fade him. But I think, the way you play DFS, the way you win at DFS is you have to make hard stands. And when I see a guy who is going to be chalk going against a team that, is pretty good against the run, one of the better teams in the league against the run, and he's expensive, I think maybe you just take a hard stand. Or, you you don't full fade, but you're under on the field. So that's how I'm going to treat that this week. Mark Thompson. He got a tutty last week. Yeah, he got a tutty. So 12 points. So 2 out of his past 3 has got double-digit points. It's a better matchup this week. Okay. And he's 8,200. He got 13 attempts last week. I'd like to see more of that. So I'm definitely going to have some Mark Thompson in the mix. All right. That's going to do it for running back. So let's move it along. All right. So let's say, I mean, I'm going cheap here. So let's say I go with Colburn. Now, what we saw last week, I ran a lot of naked Martinez lineups last week. I more or less got smoked on the main last week, but I had one lineup in small field stuff. And really, you guys, like, this 10K to first is awesome, but the $33, like 141 entry, 1K to first small field contest, like, play those. Definitely play like at least one of those if you're going to be playing the larger field one here, because that like saved my whole week. I like placed 4th in that, and I won like $400, and it saved me from getting smoked from the whole week. So you want to play those. But what I was getting at was, overall, like, I had a lot of naked Martinez lineups, and he ended up throwing for 4 touchdowns. But that's not the reason I got burned, because all the guys that he threw touchdowns to were like less than 1% owned. They were like 1%, like half percentage. So it didn't matter. But I also faded Hakeem Butler, who was like 20% owned, and he had 34 points. So that was more or less why I got smoked. But what I'll say is, with Birmingham and their style of offense, it's kind of hard to predict who's it going to be. Now, Kane, I will go back to him because he got 2 looks in the end zone. He's consistently gotten looks. He should have had 2 touchdowns. One, he didn't quite get his foot in. The other, I think it was a missed call on pass interference. So Kane's a guy that I would go back to. So let's kind of go to wide receivers here. Let's take a look. Yeah, like what I mean. Past 2 games with Martinez, he's had 6 targets. Week 3, when Martinez started, he had 8 targets. So Kane's a guy I would go back to. Now, I also, even though I played a lot of naked Martinez last week, I had some Kane as well. I had some Sternberger. So I would, I'd be inclined to like play him here, for example. Some of the other guys is not Stephen Mitchell, but is it Austin? Yeah, Austin. Now, we got 5 targets last week. We got 2 the week before. So, in 1 point, that's not something I'm necessarily going to chase. Now, Hakeem Butler, you kind of have to make a decision there, for example, because he's 10-2. Our Adrian Martinez is 10-8. It's really hard. And kind of the same thing if you're playing AJ McCarron. At some point, he's not going to have a 30-point game, right? So, we've seen him this year. He's been on a tear. 34, 36, 14, 20. He's also had 5 and 4. If he has one of those games, you're done. You have no chance. So you have to kind of be strategic in how you build. I'm probably not going to play AJ McCarron and Hakeem Butler together, but I would play, let's say, like a Troy Williams lineup with Hakeem Butler, right? Now, luckily, I think Hakeem Butler is at the point where he's getting enough targets that you can play him as a one-off. Earlier on in the season, 1 game, 3 targets, 6 targets. You want to see more, and we have seen that. 8, 9, 9, 8. Birmingham has a really good defense, though, so I expect them to have a plan for slowing him down. So, I'd probably be more inclined to play Ja'Cour Pearson. We saw him get 8 targets last week. Didn't do much with them, but week 4, he had 22 points at 10 targets. So, just looking for spots of leverage. Now, I'm going to try to look at Butler's ownership projections as of right now, see where he's at. Yeah, 14%, so pretty low. So, I think you could play him, of course. I just think, he's not going to be chalky as of right now. 14% is pretty low for 4-game slate. So I like that, but going to have to think about how you're going to build those lineups because you're going to definitely have to look for salary if you're playing a 10-8 guy or an 11K guy and trying to plug in a 10-2 wide receiver. Kind of the same thing with Kirkland. Kirkland with Chase Garbers was the number one wide receiver. He's been terrible since we lost Garbers. And it's just been because Dormity's been terrible, not because Kirkland's terrible. So, he's been terrible for his salary, not, terrible. I mean, he's averaging 14 points a game, but he's 10-5. He's more expensive than Butler. And Butler's been on a tear. So yeah, I think I would be very interested in Kirkland if we got someone besides Dormity or if we got Kirkland at low ownership. It's a decent matchup against Houston. Maybe it's a week that Kirkland erupts. Maybe it's the week that Dormity gets back. But how I'm most likely going to build this week is I'm going to mix the pass catchers with Birmingham. And when I mean by pass catchers, I'm not playing a ton of volume right now in UFL. So, I'm going to play maybe 20 lineups on the main, and then I'll play 20 lineups on Sunday. And it's mainly going to be Martinez builds. And, I'm going to get pieces from the other side. So I want Pearson. Aitman has been non-existent. He hadn't done anything in a while, but he could be a guy that could be low owned and could be due for some positive regression. 18 points, 30 points. And he hasn't done anything for a long time. So I think, and you notice, and I said this at the beginning of the season, and if there's one call that I've had that's been really good this season so far, is I said after the first 2 games, I don't think Aitman and Butler correlate well together. So if you think that it's not going to be a Butler week, play Aitman. Or don't play Aitman in your Butler lineups because they haven't correlated well together. So, that's kind of how I'd play it. I'd play some Pearson, I'd play some Aitman, and maybe a little Shepard. Now, Shepard is still above Pearson on the depth chart as we saw today. So maybe we get some Shepard in this spot. He's been kind of hurt, so you kind of got to excuse the past couple weeks. Week 2, 12 targets, and then we got Pearson. We got Pearson week 3, so it's been bad. It's been bad, but that doesn't mean that Birmingham won't come in with a plan for Butler, and we'll see guys like Shepard, Pearson, and Aitman get more involved. So if you're looking for a way to get different, I would expect Shepard to be lower owned. I would expect Aitman to be lower owned. Now, one game that I'm going to be looking to kind of do ping pong sacks, and I mentioned it at the start, Memphis and Arlington. I think this game has shootout potential. So you can go for a guy like Peyton, which I think he's been a little overpriced, but it's not terrible. A guy like Vaughn's, you could also get Javonta Payton. Here he is. Yeah. Last 2 weeks, he's averaged, 8 targets. So you could play Peyton. Actually, he's averaging more points than Vaughn because he gets in the end zone more than Vaughn does. So I like him. On the other side, we saw Dawood Davis smash the last time Troy Williams got played the majority of the game. So he got 15 targets. That was week 5, 101 yards and a tutty, 24 points. So I like Dawood Davis. I would do like a ping pong stack like that. I'll have to look at the news on Jonathan Adams. I'm not sure he's going to play. So um, I'll have to look at the depth chart. Off the top of my head, I don't remember that, but maybe he will. Maybe he will. I'm not seeing a tag on him, so okay, yeah, he's probably good to go. He could be a guy. He's always a deep threat. He'll see a spike in targets. To me, he's more of a Cookus guy, but who knows? Who knows? So yeah, I like ping pong sacks in that game for sure. Another guy I really want to get exposure to every single week. There's a couple guys, and because they have high upside and they're not like really ridiculously priced yet. Marcus Sims is one of them. We're seeing he has not smashed in a couple weeks, but last week he got 10 points. And we saw 18, 18, 16. It's the yards after the catch ability. He has the ability to break a slate on little volume. And pretty decent matchup going against DC that's quite terrible. Just across the board, they give up a lot of points per game. And then on the other side of that game, Kelvin Harmon. And, if you've been watching my first looks, we've been watching his targets go up 6, 6, 6, 12. Boom. So it went from 6 week 1 to 4 and then 6, 6. So it looked like it was going to just keep going up by 2 every week. And then it kind of, was steady here for a second. And then we got up to 12. But yeah, 27, 13, 20. He is Jordan Tiamu's number 1 wide receiver, and he's been good. I mean, we just looked at Hakeem Butler and Kirkland. They're only 1 point per game more than Calvin Harmon. He's 7,800, and they're above 10K. So I like him. He's a guy I'm mixing in every single week. Now, Marlon Williams is kind of that same type of guy we saw last week. Kevin Austin, Marlon Williams, Amari Rogers. These are guys that can break the slate because of who they are, because of who their quarterback is, the team they're on any week. So 23 points, 11. These guys, I think, all right, guys, you can definitely, if you just want a guy who's cheap, 6,100, he's a little pricier now, but if you want a guy that could just be low owned and break the slate, the Marlon Williams, the Austins, the Amari Rogers, these are, kind of your lottery tickets that can hit for sure. Kevin, like we saw, we just went over Austin. He's 4,800. Smashed last week. Probably not getting 23 points again. More likely to get you 1, 3, or 2. But hey, I'm going to take a look real quick, see, what his ownership is projecting for right now. Yeah, 2% ownership. So you could definitely do a lot worse than a guy like that. Roland, kind of another guy. So Roland will, get a touchdown here and there. He's 4,300. He's cheap. So he's probably one of the guys that, I think has double-digit upside and has, 4,300 is the kind of guy that can win you a tournament. So 11 points, 10 points. You definitely need to take some chances on some guys like that. Isaiah Winstead, he has not done anything, I don't think, since week 1. 16 points week 1. If he's active, he's kind of that guy that's super cheap, 3,800 in that game environment that can shoot out. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much it for wide receivers for the first look. So, as far as defenses, and then we'll wrap this up, we have obviously the top 2 defenses are going to be the Stallions and the Battlehawks. Um, but they're going against one another. It is a higher scoring projected game, and as far as just like the total, and typically, obviously, if a game you're projecting it to be high scoring, there's some risk in that. They're expensive. Actually, Battlehawks are a little cheaper than normal, so they got these defenses priced down. And I actually like this. I expected them to be like 5K, 4,500, and they got them priced down a bit. So the spots that I would look at with that considered, Houston. If we get more Dormady, he's thrown three touchdowns and 5 interceptions in 3 games. So I would go to Houston. Um, yeah, I would play probably both sides of this game. I think this game could shoot out. I also think it could be bad because let's be real, Memphis and Arlington have both been bad. So play both sides of that. Michigan's had a good defense, so I could see playing them against DC. And San Antonio against Houston. Wade Phillips can dial it up. So say what you want, of course, about what Dormady has done and this and that, and they're very much disappointment last week, but they can dial it up. They can create problems for Reed Sinet, who has not been very good. So this seems like a week to just kind of spread out exposures on your defense. There's some salary savings, and I think that'll allow you to pay up for some good options. So, yeah, guys, I think that's going to wrap it up. If you like this kind of content, let me know. Hit that like button, comment. Make sure you subscribe to the channel because, I know right now it's UFL. And for those of you who play UFL and you love it, that's awesome. And I'll continue to do this the rest of the season. But, after that, it's NFL. We get right into best ball. Be doing a lot of best ball content. Be doing preseason DFS and then NFL DFS, and really getting into the daily drafts a lot more this next year. Weekly winners, new formats. We're going to be doing a lot of it. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. That's going to wrap it up. Best of luck. Let's win some money. We'll see y'all next week.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to smash that like button and subscribe. You don't want to miss what's coming next. We really appreciate it. And we'll catch you in the next episode right here on the Fantasy Fling DFS channel.